Welcome to a victorious 5 at 5, and that's the first time I've been able to say that in over a month, and man, it feels good. It's been a long wait because of international break and some awful results, but finally, let's get into a winning 5 at 5. Number one, the main man, Eddie Nketiah. Listen, I was so excited after the game yesterday that in my match reaction, I barely even spoke about him. I spoke about him a little bit, but really I didn't give him the credit he deserved. And that's why he's my number one for this 5 at 5. Now, we could talk about the goals, but actually I want to focus on something different, because the thing is with Eddie Nketiah is that we've always kind of said that, look, if he doesn't score, if he doesn't get a chance, he doesn't do enough, his hold-up play isn't good enough, his pressing isn't good enough. But yesterday, he put in a really good performance, and on top of that, had those sort of clinical moments when the opportunities presented themselves. Now, if he didn't get those opportunities, he would have scored no goals yesterday, but overall, I felt like his work rate and the way he applied himself was different to the normal Eddie Nketiah that we see, who comes on with 20 minutes to go in games. I felt like he rose to the occasion in the sense that he was trusted from the start and he responded to that. For me, there was one moment in the game that I thought, you know what, typified his performance throughout the whole game, and that was in the 65th minute, where Chelsea, they actually almost just scored a goal, where the ball got cleared, booted up the pitch on the right-hand side, and it should have been like a regulation, retain possession for Chelsea, and then that's it, put Arsenal under pressure, don't give them the opportunity to get out. But Nketiah, I was watching the game and I loved what he did here. He sprinted across the entirety of the pitch, basically. A proper lateral 40-yard sprint to challenge for that ball on the right-hand side. And not only that, once he got there, he won the ball and was able to retain possession. I think he played it to Saka and Saka got the foul. All of that took the pressure off Arsenal, where usually you might have a team come straight back at you because you've almost just conceded. I think they had 2 shots on target in the space of a few seconds, and we would have been sort of defensively not in the right positions. But that's what a striker needs to do in this modern age. Take the pressure off your team, work hard, not just in the channels, but across the pitch as well, with defenders, to make sure that you take that pressure off the team. And I thought he did that brilliantly. So that's one moment that I noticed that won't get any plaudits or any headlines, but even without scoring a goal would have meant to me the performance that I saw from him was different to usual, and long may it continue. The midfield. Listen, our midfield all season has been a point of conversation, because even when it's been our first choice midfielding, Xhaka and Partey, often they have not performed to their potential, and we just simply haven't dominated games. Yesterday, we've come up against one of the best midfielders in the league in N'Golo Kante, and do you know what? Not for a second yesterday did I look at him and think, I wish he was on my team. I thought Elneny and Xhaka did a brilliant job. Xhaka, very uncharacteristic in 2 moments, one bad, one good, where he turned away from Timo Werner's shot for the first goal. I felt like that was poor of him, but then he more than made up for it with some incredible footwork, resulting in him nutmegging Marcos Alonso on the edge of his own box to set up the move that went and resulted in Arsenal taking the lead again with a stunning finish from Emile Smith-Rowe. That was pure silk. Just shows you don't need to lace it. That went in because Mendy didn't even realise that he was shooting. It was that effortless and lovely with the side foot. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. This is about Xhaka and Elneny, who I thought played brilliantly yesterday. But I want to ask you, who do you think was actually the better midfielder out of the 2 yesterday? Granit Xhaka or Mohamed Elneny? Both of them, for me, performed in a way that surpassed my expectations, because let's face it, when the team sheet came out, I don't think any of us were particularly confident. But on full time, those 2 players, I think, did really, really well. Point 3. And this might sound a bit harsh, but yesterday the scoreline was Chelsea 2, Chelsea rejects 3. Bukayo Saka obviously got the 4th, but just focusing on those first 3 goals, they were scored by Eddie Nketiah with 2 and Emile Smith-Rowe with 1. And I don't know if you know this, it's quite commonly known when it comes to Eddie Nketiah that he was an ex-Chelsea player, but Emile Smith-Rowe was also on Chelsea's books at one point in time. So Chelsea have got an amazing track record of letting players go that turn out to be pretty damn good. Kevin De Bruyne, Mohamed Salah. I would love to be able to speak about Eddie Nketiah and Emile Smith-Rowe in the same vein as those 2 players one day, even though there's a long, long way to go. But I just thought lovely, lovely poetic justice that those 2 players that Chelsea released came back to haunt them and basically salvaged Arsenal's season at the expense of Chelsea. So Eddie Nketiah, well done. Emile Smith-Rowe, well done. Chelsea, well, it's funny, but I love that poetic justice of these players coming back to haunt. Number 4, and this is about Thomas Tuchel being a bit of a comedian. Listen, in Arsenal's last defeat, Mikel Arteta came out and said, if this was a basketball game, we would have won, which wound me up. I just thought, what's the point of saying that? The funny thing is, yesterday, Chelsea were the team that had more possession. And in basketball, more possession leads to more attempts, leads to more points because it's easier to score. So if yesterday was a basketball game, it would have been Chelsea that were the victors. But you don't hear Mikel Arteta saying that after a win, do you? And this is just what managers do. They come up with any old excuse to talk about when they lose a game. And whilst Mikel Arteta's basketball analogy was bad, Thomas Tuchel went full comedian with what he said after the game. Yeah, he blamed the pitch. You must have heard his comments. I'm going to read them out to you. He says, to say the pitch is difficult to play here, it maybe sounds like an excuse. Well, that's because it is an excuse. But it is a very, very difficult pitch that we have here. It's not in our favour. The ball bounces very awkwardly in front of Andreas Christensen, obviously, when he wants to play the ball, referring to the first goal. Now, I mean, come on. Firstly, you've played on that pitch for years and years and years, and I've never ever heard any manager at Chelsea say, oh, we did really, really well to win today because the pitch isn't very good. No one ever spoken about the pitch before, and all of a sudden you're piping up now when you thought you were going to beat Arsenal and you had the audacity to play Romelu Lukaku because you thought we'd allow him to play himself into form. We were charitable against Palace, Brighton and Southampton, but we're not that charitable that we're going to let Lukaku do the business against us. Anyway, to say that about the pitch is even more farcical when you think about the fact that Arsenal were playing on that pitch. It's not that Chelsea were playing on one bouncy pitch and Arsenal were playing on a perfect pitch yesterday. When people talk about excuses that are applicable to both teams, you know they've lost it. The only thing I can think of is Thomas Tuchel was trying to come out with that ridiculous excuse to deflect away from the performance. But you know what? The performance was there to be seen. Chelsea were a joke, and they didn't even have their fans in the stadium to support them. And Arsenal took full advantage. That's all I care about. Now, number 5. I could talk about Lukaku. I could go into detail there. I've touched upon him. I could go into detail about that Chelsea's fans didn't even bother to turn up and they're a bit tin pot. But you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to focus on Ian Wright. And nothing to do with the game. But since the game has finished, we've seen that Ian Wright has been inducted into the Premier League Hall of Fame. And this gives me a lot of personal happiness because Ian Wright, a lot of you will know, he's my absolute hero. My first ever Arsenal game was 13th of September 1997, Arsenal versus Bolton. And Ian Wright broke the goal scoring record in that game. I kept that ticket. I kept the programme. The ticket's got my surname on it. A real piece of, Hader footballing history that I managed to get signed by the great man himself. And you know what? I sent a message to Ian Wright earlier to say that I'm proud of him because there was a point in time where Ian Wright went on a 6-week loan spell with Brighton and they rejected him. At that point, he had a mouth to feed at home and he actually thought about just quitting football and just doing whatever little job he could get to make sure that he could feed that mouth at home. And now look at him. Not only did he achieve incredible stuff on the pitch, but he's inducted into the Premier League Hall of Fame. So my congratulations and pride go out to Ian Wright. What an incredible achievement. And I'm sure there's many more Arsenal entrants to come into that Hall of Fame. Anyway, that's me done. Until next time, a big game coming up. Let's hope we can get another 3 points and make up for the 3 defeats that we had. But until then, take care.